Hello and welcome to the Harbridge and Cross training program on hearing protection, care, use, and type. Chapter 6, version 1.0. Harbridge and Cross is committed to health and safety and believes in order to be effective, health and safety must be cultural and expressed at all levels of the organization. This is our agenda for today. First, we're going to discuss the roles and responsibilities of all workplace parties. From there, we'll talk about the legislative requirements surrounding hearing protection. Next, we'll move into the activities that require us to use hearing protection, some of the injuries and hazards that can occur to us if we don't have it, and the prevention, types of hearing protection to better protect us from these hazards. Next, we'll talk about the care and maintenance, a summary, and then we'll go through our hearing protection multiple choice test. There will be a short video here in this presentation that will show us how to use a foamable insert bud. So if you have samples of foamable earplugs, please use them to follow along. Roles and responsibilities. At Harbridge and Cross, there are no free lunches. Everyone has a job to do. Beginning with senior management, their job is to review the guidelines and training requirements for PPE annually and to apply changes to the manual as required. Ensure all job sites have adequate PPE based on the type of work activities expected, and to provide all workers training on how to use PPE effectively. Your superintendents and supervisors have an important job to do. They are to review with workers their daily activities, hazards, and ways to mitigate risk through the use of specialized PPE. Review with workers the required training programs on the care, use, and type of specialized PPE. Have available specialized PPE for the required activities. And verify through site inspections that workers are using specialized PPE as required. Your safety coordinators are there to support you. They are to verify through the use of site inspections that workers are using as required specialized PPE, report any violations of the PPE requirements to the site superintendent, and provide disciplinary actions as required. Train workers on the care, use, and types of specialized PPE for the required work activities. And of course, workers. Your jobs are to participate as required in the Harbridge and Cross training program on the care, use, and type of specialized PPE. Identify on your DTAs any kind of specialized PPE required to minimize risk when performing an activity, and use as required specialized PPE to mitigate hazards. Legislative requirements. If you open up your green book, Occupational Health and Safety Act, section 21(1), it states that a worker shall wear such protective clothing and use such protective equipment or devices as are necessary to protect the worker against the hazards to which the worker may be exposed to. There have been some updates to the legislation, including Regulations 381-15 that pertains directly to hearing protection. Under Section 2, every employer shall take all measures reasonably necessary in the circumstances to protect workers from exposure to hazardous sound levels. Section 2-1, every employer shall ensure that a worker is exposed to sounds level greater than 85 decibels have the appropriate hearing protection. Now, when it comes to hearing protection, we're all going to use the CSA standard Z94.2 hearing protection devices, and this is a Canadian Standards Association requirement. For those in an industrial establishment, Section 139, subsection 3, every employer shall take all measures reasonably necessary in the circumstances to protect workers from exposures to hazardous sound levels. Activities requiring hearing protection. In construction, exposed ears are susceptible to physical hazards. Hearing protection is often the only practical means of preventing injuries from physical hazards such as using power tools, working near heavy equipment, or an acoustical environment. Now, the factors that affect hearing, of course, include the type of noises, if it's continuous, intermittent, impact, high and low frequencies, the intensity of the noise, the level of the loudness, and of course the duration of exposure, the length of time a worker is subject to these loud noises, whether it's days, hours, or in a year. So again, in the first picture here, we see a worker using a jackhammer, which again can produce more than 90 decibels. In the second picture, although these workers are outside, they're working in close proximity to heavy machinery, which could have an impact on their ability to hear. And in the last picture, we see two workers walking into a subway tunnel. This acoustical environment makes even the smallest noises sound much louder. Injuries and hazards. In construction, injuries from lack of hearing protection may result in a broad array of injuries, including hearing loss that can include both temporary and permanent damage. The physical environments. Loud sounds from power tools, heavy equipment, or acoustical environments can all have an impact on our ability to hear. So this is just a little sound chart, and it'll just give you an idea of the loudness of certain activities. So for example, a raindrop produces about 40 decibels, and a jackhammer produces 120 decibels. Now the next picture here just shows you the inner workings of your ear from when we receive the information and to where it travels through the ear all the way to the eardrum. So again, we want to protect our ears because once our hearing goes, it almost never comes back. Prevention, the type of hearing protections. In order to protect yourself from hearing hazards, you want to make sure you have the appropriate hearing protection. At Harbridge & Cross, we provide all Harbridge & Cross staff foamable earplugs or earmuffs depending on the type of work activities. But in this exercise, we're also going to talk about foamable and semi-ear inserts, which are other alternatives that can be used to protect yourselves from hearing hazards. Firstly, foamables. Styles and comforts. These are disposable plugs. The elasticity lets them adapt easily to changes in the ear canal. Most brands can be reused a few times during the day. However, at Harbridge & Cross, we recommend that if you're taking them out after lunch that you replace them altogether. You don't want to have dirty foamable earplugs in your ears because again, that's how infection can develop. Hygiene. You want to clean your hands before you're inserting your plugs. And the advantages is that it's a low risk irritation and one size fits most workers. The disadvantage is that a large supply is needed for frequent removal. The earmuffs are insulated plastic cups equipped with soft cushions to allow for a good seal and comfort. It's to be used more than once. Hygiene. Replace your cups whenever they're dirty or brittle. And the advantage is that there's low risk irritation and it can also work with your hard hat. So in some cases, the earmuffs actually attach to the hard hat itself to create extra comfort and make it more accessible to workers. The disadvantage is that bands may often wear out, and eyewear and hair may interfere sometimes with the tight seal of the earmuffs. Foamable earplugs, again, they are identified by this orange foam. They are made from cotton and again, or wax, and they are also disposable. They are designed for single use only. So once you take them out of your ear, you are to throw away the foamables. You can't reuse them as opposed to the yellow foams over here. Once again, you want to clean your hands before you insert them. The advantage is that they're very cheap. However, the disadvantage is that they're not recommended for construction projects. So when you look at the back of the foamable ear box, it'll tell you that the sound decibels to which they are rated for is under 85. And of course, in construction, we're mostly dealing with sounds above 85 decibels. So this isn't always the best fit. Semi-inserts, of course, are another example. They're small caps that are held in place over the ear canal. They are to be used more than once during the day. For hygiene purposes, you want to wash your hands with hot water and soap and remove them after. And the advantage is that they're good for when you're removing them frequently. Because again, because of this little loop, you can oftentimes hang them over top of your neck so that they are not actually being put onto the floor. The disadvantage is that a proper seal is required for regular use. So this is our video about foamable earplugs, and I invite you all to grab a pair of foamable plugs so you can follow along with this video so that you can make sure you're using them in the most effective manner.
Hello, I'm Elliot Berger, Senior Scientist, Auditory Research for Aero Technologies, and I have been working with foam earplugs since they were invented in the 1970s. We have learned much since then about how to use them well and how effective they can be. This brief 5-minute video was created to share that information in order to optimize your wearing experience. In the next few minutes, I'd like to explain to you some of the features of using a foam earplug to get the best comfort and the best protection. Although foam earplugs are relatively easy to use for fine performance, if you pay attention to these details, they'll work a lot better for you. With a foam plug, unlike another piece of foam, for example a bathroom sponge which you squash and knead and squeeze, with a foam plug there's a particular way that you want to prepare it for insertion. You want to roll it into a very tiny, tightly compressed cylinder. Now some people like to roll it along their fingers like this. Other people like to roll it around their fingers. Some people, because they need some extra finger strength, will use both hands. The only thing that doesn't work because it causes a distorted and creased plug is to roll it between the palms of your hands. So I prefer rolling it like this, and this is how I will demonstrate it for you. I'm going to roll it slowly without squeezing it too hard at first. As the plug gets smaller and smaller, I'm going to squeeze it harder and harder. The reason I don't squeeze too hard at first is because I don't want to squash it into a shape that will have creases or wrinkles. I'd like it to be very round and smooth so it's rolling up and down my fingers in a very smooth manner. As I get it small, I want to squeeze it as hard as I possibly can, and I'm not exaggerating. I seriously mean that this is your morning finger exercises. You want to squeeze this plug as hard as you possibly can so that you have a tiny crease-free cylinder that you can then put into your ear. The other part of inserting this plug or any other ear plug is that you're going to want to reach over your head with the hand opposite the ear that's being fitted and grasp your ear firmly and pull it outwards and upwards. The reason that we do that, as you see here, is that as we pull on the ear, it changes the opening of the ear canal. You can see how now I have my ear opened rather widely, and it will be easier for me to get a plug in. For different people, the direction may vary somewhat, but in all cases, you will be grabbing the ear between the thumb and forefingers and pulling it away from the side of your head. So you roll the plug down while you have the plug well compressed. You keep rolling it. You bring it up to your ear. And now while you're holding the pinna, you insert the plug in the ear canal. There's no reason to hold the plug because once you've put it in your ear properly, it will expand in place to give you a custom, comfortable fit. One of the likeliest causes of a bad insertion of a foam ear plug is that it has been inadequately rolled down or it has been allowed to expand too much before it was brought up for insertion to the ear. What this looks like is that someone will come up to the ear with a plug inadequately compressed and then try and force it into the ear canal. It won't slide into the canal any more than it will slide out of the canal. And you can see how it looks like it's expanding out of my ear. Actually, it's simply regaining its original uncompressed shape. One gauge that's helpful to judge the fit of a foam ear plug is where the back of the plug sits relative to this little bump in front of the ear, which is called the tragus. You can see that in this case, where the plug has been poorly fitted, that much of it is outside the tragus and filling this part of the ear, which is called the concha. When a plug has been properly inserted, you can see that from this angle, you can barely see that there's any foam in my ear. I'm going to turn my head for you now slowly, and you can see how the plug has been well fitted into the ear canal. It's lost well behind the tragus. This part of the ear called the concha has no foam in it. The foam is in the ear canal itself. You can also use your finger for this test by feeling the back of the plug relative to the tragus. Another way to assess the fit of foam ear plugs is to allow them to expand in your ear for about a minute or so, and then to remove them and examine the plug, or read the plug if you will, because at this point the plug will be providing a custom impression of your ear. On this plug, what you can see is that there's a wrinkle, and that wrinkle is actually a sound channel which could let sound in along the side of the plug. So that's not been a well-fitted ear plug. Now on this ear plug, the tip of it has been mashed back a little bit. I would like to see the end of the plug blunt and square, indicating that it had been allowed to be inserted fully and to expand to fill the canal. This one had been pushed in a little bit at the end and was running into the canal wall. On this one, you can see that about one half of it has been inserted into the ear canal. You can see by the bend here, there's no creases or wrinkles, so that is a well-fitted foam ear plug. Thank you for your time, and now it's up to you. Try my suggestions. Be willing to practice and pay attention to your ears. You will be rewarded with a lifetime of good listening.
Care and maintenance. You want to make sure you're checking your equipment each time for any kind of damage, cuts, cracks, or other kind of damages. You want to replace them as necessary. Replace disposable earplugs frequently and store all of your equipment in a clean, dry area. This is just an overall summary to just talk about some of the information we learned today. Firstly, we'll talk about the types of noises that we'll experience in a construction environment. So typically if you're working around a crane, whether it's a mobile or a tower crane, the noise range is between 78 and 103 decibels. If you're working around a compactor, it's about 90 to 112 decibels. Grinders, 106 to 110 decibels. Concrete saws, 97 decibels to 103 decibels. Jackhammers, 100 to 115 decibels, and compressors, 85 to 104 decibels. So in all of these activities, hearing protection is required because we are well beyond the 85 decibel range. Care. Hearing protection and construction are subject to many damage-causing hazards. Foam earplugs should be replaced at least daily. Do not reuse them. Earmuffs should be conform to the latest CSA standard, and again, that's referring to Z94.2. And hearing protection must fit snug. Hearing protection multiple choice test. So let's go through these three questions together and let's see if test our knowledge. Question 1. Which of the following is a worker's responsibility? Is it A, to provide specialized PPE to the workforce for the required activities? B, report any violations of the specialized PPE policy to the site superintendent and provide disciplinary action as required? Or is it C, use as required specialized PPE to mitigate hazards? Question 2. Harbinger and Cross supplies which of the following hearing protection to its workforce? Is it A, foam earplugs, B, neoprene gloves, C, spectacles class 1? And remember, this question is referring to hearing protection. And lastly, question 3. Which of the following are hazards associated with hearing protection? Is it A, power tools, B, heavy equipment such as cranes, C, skill saws above 90 decibels, or D, all of the above? Let's see what the answers are. Okay. So if you have any questions about this or any other training program, please contact the Harbinger and Cross Health and Safety Department. Thank you and have a great day.